And next, we'll speak with a local filmmaker who has 2 movies coming to TV soon, including one about legendary Bay Area basketball coach Pete Newell.
The footprint that Coach Newell left on our game at every level is a huge footprint.
An East Bay filmmaker who's produced more than 20 documentaries has 2 new films that are coming to TV.
Yeah, Doug Harris grew up in Berkeley and focuses much of his attention on sports figures, but lately he's been branching out. And Doug joins us now from the newsroom. And Doug, one of your films is called Basketball Guru, and it is about legendary USF and Cal basketball coach Pete Newell. So everyone wants to know, why did you choose him as a subject?
Well, actually, Pete Newell's documentary came about from a short film that I was doing about USF, the history of USF basketball. And USF's history begins with Pete Newell. And so that project pretty much morphed into a story about his life because no one had ever produced a documentary about Pete Newell. And he's probably has the most brilliant mind in the history of the game of basketball. And
he won the NIT while he was at USF, won the Pac-8 championship, it was the Pac-8 back then,
yeah,
while he was at Cal, and went on. He had the winningest record against John Wooden at UCLA. A lot of fascinating information, but he really became kind of a legend way beyond the college ranks, didn't he?
Yeah, well, Pete Newell, one of the things that he's most noted for is what's called the big man's camp. And this is a camp where he trained some of the greatest NBA centers and forwards of all time. And he would work with these players in the summertime, and it was just a great program that he ran every summer.
All right, so I know that you're working on a couple of other projects, and one documentary is about Byron Rumford. That's a name that many of us here aren't too familiar with, but he was one of the first black members of the California Assembly and led the charge to change housing rights for minorities. So why did you choose him?
Well, I didn't choose Byron Rumford. The project kind of chose me. My mother, Gloria Nelson, she insisted that I take a break from some of the sports documentaries and focus on a wonderful, wonderful civil rights pioneer from my hometown in Berkeley. And so I'd been working on that project for the last 3 years, and it finally made its way to the airwaves. And I'm happy about the film because it's actually my first PBS broadcast.
What was most surprising when you were looking in and researching that? What was the most surprising thing about him?
Well, it was the most surprising thing about Byron Rumford was the fact that it's alleged that they stole the election from him when he ran for state senate in 1966. And that was actually the most difficult part of the documentary to kind of break down, you know, how that election was supposedly rigged up and he lost that election, and it was just a bad situation. But Byron Rumford is revered in the California Assembly and also in the Berkeley and Oakley communities. And so I'm very proud of the fact that I got a chance to document his story.
You've done a lot of projects, Doug. What's next?
Well, next I'm working on sports again. We're going into baseball. And we're going to be working on a project called Called Up, which is the story of Emmett Ashford, who was Major League Baseball's first black umpire. And this year, when the season starts, we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of when Emmett Ashford came to the major leagues from the Pacific Coast League.
And Doug, you know, you've picked some topics that a lot of people just aren't familiar with, but they're so important because there's a lot of groundbreaking civil rights work that you're discussing. So it's fascinating stuff. Real quick, tell us when people can see the Pete Newell story and the Byron Rumford story.
Okay, the Pete Newell Basketball Guru, the Pete Newell story will be aired on Wednesday, February 24th at 7 o'clock, immediately after the Golden State Warriors versus the Miami Heat game on Comcast Sportsnet.
Yeah, there should be some people watching that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And to find out more about all of your projects, you have a website. People can go to www.dougharrismedia.com. That's Harris with 2 R's. And people can check it all out. There's a lot of fascinating stuff there. Doug Harris, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it.
And thank you.